Well, it's been a little bit. If you're wondering where I've been, I got in a fight with a bear. You should see the bear. I've been in the hospital, recovering, thank you for your wishes. And, I'm back. No, in reality, I'm a junior in high school, and life is miserable, and I don't have time to do videos because I have work. But things are winding down because the school year is almost over, so I can finally talk about movies in peace again. A little update on what you missed over the last month. Avengers Infinity War, 7 out of 10. Go see Isle of Dogs, Tully, and Deadpool 2, which are the best movies in theaters right now, and get a group of friends and go see Breaking In, because that was the best and funniest movie-going experience I've had since Kidnap last year. Anyway, since I've gotten that out of the way, summer movie season has started, so let's talk about Oscar season, because that's what you guys are here for, not summer movie season. In all honesty though, before I start talking about this, if you're interested in what I have to say about movies that release on a regular basis that I won't talk about on this channel, there are some movies that I'll find that I have enough to talk about in depth and with context, and I'll actually talk about on this channel. But for those that I don't, I still see, and you can follow me on Letterboxd at Ice Cold Films. It's also in my by my channel banner on YouTube, or follow me on Twitter at Ice Cold Film, not Films. That was taken. So, anyway, I've decided that I can kind of start talking about the Oscar season a little bit. We finally died down from February. We're towards the end of May now, and yes, summer movies are coming out, but we also can look forward a little bit to the fall and what's going to be coming out in the coming months. Now, this isn't predictions necessarily, or like last year when I did early Oscar predictions. This is volume 1 of early Oscar contenders, what I think you should be looking out for that comes out starting around like August and kind of ending around December, January time. This is not all of the movies that I think are up for contention this year. I think there are a lot of them already. These are just the ones that I have collectively put together in a list for volume 1. So for those of you in the comments asking, well, what do you think about this? Or if you want to hear my viewpoint on a specific film that I didn't mention in this, say it. I read your comments. I do. I've done a lot of videos based on comments that I've seen, and I will try and touch on that in the next edition or volume or whatever you may like to call it. So, without further ado, let's get started with the list, because the first one I want to talk about is a movie that I'm incredibly excited for, which is Widows. It is Steve McQueen's newest film, and if you're unfamiliar with Steve McQueen, the last movie he did was received pretty well by the Academy. It was 12 Years a Slave, and it took Best Picture and Best Supporting Actress, and I believe Best Screenplay adapted, if I'm not mistaken. Steve McQueen has become a very critically acclaimed director. I don't really think he's made a bad movie, because he did 12 Years a Slave, Shame, and Hunger, I believe, are what he's known for, and all three of those are fantastic films. Shame has even been recognized as being snubbed for a lot of awards, but the whole NC-17 thing kind of caught up with it, and I think that kind of screwed it over in the long run. But Widows is his newest film, and I'm going to pull up the IMDb page so I can tell you like a little bit more about it. But I think just the fact that it's Steve McQueen makes it a movie to look out for. The plot of it is really interesting. It seems to be some kind of thriller, but I think it's going to have plenty of social commentary, which is something the Oscars often like to talk about. And it has one of the most stacked casts. I had to pull this up just so that we could talk about it. Viola Davis, Carrie Coon, Daniel Kaluuya, Liam Neeson, Jon Bernthal, Colin Farrell. I guess you could count Michelle Rodriguez, but I don't. Robert Duvall, Luke Haas, Jackie Weaver. The list really goes on and doesn't necessarily stop. And so I think you could absolutely be looking at like some lead actor nominations and some supporting actor nominations. It's also written by Gillian Flynn, and if you're not commonly known to her, that's not a saying. She wrote Gone Girl, the book and the film, and Gone Girl is oftentimes looked back as like, how did that movie not get more nominations than it did? It only got 1, and it was for Rosamund Pike, and I think a lot of people at least agree that it should have taken like a screenplay nomination or anything else, because it's really one of Fincher's best works recently. I think it's really well done, or at least I think it was snubbed. But anyway, I think Steve McQueen paired with her is going to be a really interesting movie stylistically, at least, the tone of it is going to be really interesting, and that cast, just all of them together, is going to be one of the fucking craziest things ever to see. It comes out in November, so the literal heart of award season. I think this is absolutely one to look forward to, and if you want to get out to see all of these award movies, or if you want to see good movies in general, A, Steve McQueen is a great director to look out for, and B, this is definitely a movie to look for when it comes to contention. The next couple I want to talk about are kind of paired. I'm going to pair these two together because we're seeing another Barry Jenkins versus Damien Chazelle year, which I think is really cool. A couple years ago when La La Land and Moonlight went head-to-head, I think most people had, and myself included, predicted that La La Land would come out on top in terms of the directing race and picture race. It ended up being split with Barry Jenkins taking Best Picture and Damien Chazelle taking Best Director, which I think a lot of people are pretty sufficient with and adequate with and have moved on with our lives, even though we still make fun of poor Bonnie and Clyde for fucking that one up. But, nevertheless, both of them have films coming out, and they are both looking to be strong contentions. Now, if Beale Street Could Talk is technically on IMDb listed as 2019, but it's also in post-production, which means it's pretty close to done, so I think it could come out late 2018, early 2019, like early release 2018, but by that same token, if it gets pushed back, then literally me talking about this movie will mean absolutely nothing. But I'm going to talk about it because I'm really hoping for another Barry Jenkins versus Damien Chazelle year, because I think it'd be really cool to see them go toe-to-toe again, but then again, like if a third movie steps in, or a fourth or a fifth, and they have a better chance, and it's not going to be as interesting. But if Beale Street Could Talk, I think is just one to look out for in general because of Barry Jenkins and because of the name he's sort of built for himself. The one thing that I think it has slowing it down, to be perfectly frank with you, is the cast, because I started looking at this, and I'm going to read you some of the... It's Ed Scarron, who is the villain in Deadpool, the first Deadpool, which I think is one of the weakest parts of that movie, and he's also in The Transporter Refueled, which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but apparently he's in Game of Thrones, and apparently he's okay in that. Dave Franco, who has done a good job throughout his career of playing Dave Franco over and over again. Even you watch The Disaster Artist, and he's playing Dave Franco a little bit better. Pedro Pascal, I hear he's in Narcos, but the only exposure I've had to him was Kingsman 2, which I loathe more than most other sequels in this world because I was so let down by it. And then Diego Luna, who is the bad actor, or one of the bad actors in Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. So that kind of worries me a little bit. I don't think you'll be seeing any acting nominations unless one of them pulls something out that just no one knew would be there, and I think if anyone can pull it out of them, it's Barry Jenkins, who brought Mahershala Ali, who, like, he was known, you know, I'd seen House of Cards and I knew who he was, but really pulled a performance out of him that many hadn't seen. Or like Naomi Harris, who was in Skyfall and Pirates of the Caribbean, and he fucking yanked a supporting performance out of her. She's excellent in Moonlight. And even all those kids. So I think that if anyone can really work with actors that well, I think it's going to be Barry Jenkins, and he can elevate that movie. But another thing you could knock it with is release date, and the fact that it doesn't have a set-in-stone release date yet, and this might not even contend for this year's Academy Awards. So there's definitely something to look out for. Then you've got First Man, which is Damien Chazelle's newest film. Will be his first movie that does not center on jazz, but he is also coming off a win for Best Director, and he's taking on a biopic, which everyone and their mother knows is something that if you want to win an Oscar, you want to make a biopic, because that's just what they like. And it's the first real big feature film to center around Neil Armstrong, the first one that's going to have a really strong amount of attention surrounding it. Also really gathering up a strong cast. You've got Ryan Gosling in the lead role, but you've also got Claire Foy. I think John Bernthal is in this one too. Jason Clarke. They just added one other guy. I don't remember his name, but like I know his face, and if I were to pull up a picture of him, I would know it. But that's another one that's really starting to rack up a strong star-studded cast. And on top of that, what's interesting is that this is the first Damien Chazelle movie not to be written by Damien Chazelle. But what I've found most interesting about his filmography so far with Whiplash and La La Land is that Whiplash really showed off his skills as a screenwriter, because I think that's one of the best scripts we've had in the 2010s at the very least. And then I put it kind of close, like up there with Social Network. And then you've got La La Land, which I think was weaker in terms of writing, but a little better in terms of direction, and I think really showed off that he has a strong style to him and he can really pay attention to the close details in terms of that. But this movie will not be written by him, it will just be directed by him, and you've got Josh Singer writing it, who has shown some strong success with his last couple of screenplays at the Academy Awards. He wrote Spotlight and The Post, and The Post was nominated for Best Picture, so you got to give it a little bit of credit there. And Spotlight, I believe, won Screenplay and won Best Picture, so he's obviously done some really successful things there. Damien Chazelle has talked about how this is kind of going to be an action movie, which makes me even more interested to see it, but also more interested to see how that sits with Academy voters. And I think that just seeing that movie up against some of the other ones and seeing if Ryan Gosling could take another nomination or Claire Foy could take her first Oscar nomination is going to be really interesting. One that I want to touch on real quick, because I've gotten several comments asking why haven't you talked about this movie, is Black Panther. The reason I haven't talked about this movie, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, is because I didn't like it very much. And I knew that I would receive a lot of backlash for it, because that's just how the internet is. I was not a big fan of Black Panther, and I think that it's largely Marvel's fault, because I think Ryan Coogler is one of the best directors working right now, but I never felt like his real touch on it, his style on it. What made Creed so unique was the fact that Ryan Coogler directed it and made it different from the 6 other Rocky movies, and I argue that Creed almost holds a place among the first Rocky. I think Creed is one of the best movies made recently, and Fruitvale Station is also excellent, but both of those are so great because Ryan Coogler had his distinctive voice within it, and I don't think Black Panther had that, because I don't think he knew how to make a terribly big budget film like that. But nevertheless, the people talking about it with Oscar buzz, you know, you never know, I guess. Get Out kind of proved all of us wrong in saying that if a movie's released in February, that doesn't hurt its chances. But the fact that Black Panther released before the actual Academy Awards were held does sort of rub me the wrong way. That's all I'm gonna say about that one. How's that? Backseat is another one I want to talk about, which is yet another biopic, and it is about, oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. Alright, so my camera just like shut off on me, so I'm going to talk about this last movie and then figure this out because my camera's kind of broken. So I'm going to talk about Backseat and then I'm going to wrap up, but I will do a volume 2 soon, I promise. I also don't want this video to run too long. But Backseat is Adam McKay's newest film, which is centering around Dick Cheney, starring Christian Bale, Amy Adams, and Sam Rockwell. Adam McKay's last film of The Big Short did very well at the Oscars. It took a screenplay Oscar and it was nominated for a slew of other things. Adam McKay has become a very stylistic director. I think he showed with The Big Short that he really has a vision for how he wants to make true story films, and I think they're very different from a lot of other biopics and films about real life events that have been released. But this is looking to really transcend a lifetime and a career, and I think movies that do that, they start at point A and they travel for a long time to point B, also do really well. But Christian Bale is always one to look out for in terms of a performer when he acts, and Amy Adams has been nominated 5 times, so they're probably looking to divvy out an award to her at one point, but they're also looking to do that with Glenn Close, who has received a lot of Oscar talk for the one movie that I don't know much about, and that will be in the second volume. Sam Rockwell is also in this movie, coming hot off an Oscar win, and he could be looking to fire off that steam and grab another supporting actor nomination. I think he's playing George W. Bush, if I'm not mistaken, which is fucking awesome. But I think that's definitely a movie to look out for and to be ready for. So, I'm going to stop talking because this video is running long and my camera's fucked up. I will name the other movies that I was going to talk about and that will be in the next video. Mary Queen of Scots, Boy Erased, Newsflash, and Black Klansman will be what I talk about in the next video that should be coming next week. I want to start doing these like kind of weekly and just pumping these out so that you have a consistent stream of content. I appreciate your guys' patience with me while I haven't been around and while I've been absent. Thank you guys for sticking around and not leaving, for those of you who didn't. More of this to come soon and other content that I have planned. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. I do hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.